Hey everybody, it's your girl Angie. Welcome back to Kiss My Cheeks TV. We are here for our virtual book club. The first book we have up today is Kindred by Octavia Butler. First, if you look in the comments, there's a link. If you ever want to just come up here on your avatar, on camera, however you want to do it, and you want to join the discussion, just click the link in the chat and I'll bring you up for the virtual book club. Announcement number 2, I know up next we're going to do the Davenports. That's the next book we're going to read. It's the current book we're reading. I'm just doing like a backtrack on Kindred. But I might change the structure of the virtual book club because I find that I'm reading faster than what I thought I would. And I find myself slowing down for the virtual discussion where I think it's a better discussion if everyone reads the book and then we come together and discuss it instead of chapter by chapter. But we'll get to that in the next video. But up first, let's go over Kindred. Now, I'm so excited about this book because maybe a couple of months ago, was it Hulu? One of the streaming platforms had a series called Kindred. Now, a lot of people on Twitter and social media was like, oh, we read this book in high school. I'm so happy they turned into a series. And I was like, what? This was a book? Like, I've never heard of this. I've never heard of this story until it was on the streaming platform. And I watched it. I think I watched it twice because I watched it once at home. It had to come out around Christmas because when I was at home with my mother over the Christmas holidays, I watched it again with her. I was like, you got to watch this movie called Kindred. And so then the way Kindred, the series ended, you know, a cliffhanger, I was like, the way they do these series now, I was like, it's going to be 2 years before it come back. And then look, it's not even coming back. So I said, Angie, buy the book. I really wanted to know what happened with this story. So I bought the book, I read it, and I really enjoyed it. Like, I would read this again. It's a interesting story. So that's how I came up with this, and I wanted to kind of review it now because I've already read the entire book. It's really good. So the main point of Kindred, I thought the main point is you can't change history. Like, what's going to happen is going to happen. So the book centers around Dana, mid-20s young lady whose family back in the 1800s, slavery time, I guess it's a mixed family. She has a family member that is going to be born between a slave master and a slave. And she keeps going back in time to save the little boy who is going to be like one of her great grandfathers, because he's constantly getting himself in death-defying situations where he almost dies. And she pulls herself from the current time back into history to save his life. And then the only way she can come back to the current time is if she feels like her life is in danger. When I saw it, you have to take, for the book, you have to take your mind completely out of the television series. In the book, there's no mother stuck in slavery involved. It's a lot of changes to the story. That was the biggest change, is the mother being involved. But I just found it, you know, off top, my 2023 brain, I wouldn't want to be in slavery. I'm like, Dana keeps going back here and she's feeling compassion. She saves the boy life, and then she's trying to change history. She's trying to free slaves, teach them how to read, teach them how to write, teach them a little bit. So in the time period she's in, most of these people will not see freedom, you know, from the Civil War, the emancipation. So in my 2023 brain, I was like, Angie, I'm up out of here. Like how the mother on the series made that little potion for her to think she was dying and she immediately went back home. That would have been me. That would have been me. I would have wanted to go back home. Another main thing in the book is Kevin is her husband. In the series, Kevin is just some man she met at a restaurant and she having a little love affair with. But in the book, Kevin is her husband and they've been married for a while and they go through the backstory of Kevin and all of that. So Kevin gets stuck in the book, but the second time she goes back, she in the book, she doesn't take Kevin with her because she doesn't want her husband to be stuck in slavery. And I think the course of this time travel is weird because if she gets stuck in slavery, she could be stuck there for 2 years. But when she comes back in the current time, it could be 2 hours or just one day. And I'm like, this is, they call it a science fiction book. I'm not really into science fiction, but I really just enjoyed this story. So I went online and I pulled some questions for book club reviews. So I want to answer some of the questions about the book, give you my thoughts. Again, the link is in the chat. If you want to come on and answer some questions or you want to give me your 2 cents about the book, the link is in the chat. Just click it. You can use your avatar. You can come on camera. It's up to you. So let's get into some of the questions about Kindred. The first question is, a master slave relationship can never be anything other than an imbalance of power. However, are there any type of relationships with power imbalances that we still consider just today or even sometimes positive? So I guess they want to know if there are any kind of positive power imbalance relationships. There's power imbalance relationships in everything. And again, that's something that I really didn't understand with Dana, because I felt like Dana got herself in trouble when she didn't have to, and she was too easy to conform to the ways of slavery. I don't know. Does that mean I don't have a compassionate heart? Because I felt like she was compassionate. She wanted to conform. In the book, she even said it's weird how I find it easy to conform to this way of life. I just feel like I wouldn't want to be there. And in my mind, knowing you really can't change history, what's going to happen is going to happen. Like, you coming from the future, you're not about to end slavery at all. So it's like, I didn't understand why she kept putting her life at risk. And I would just want to be up and out of there. I would see Rufus. Okay, Rufus, let me help you fix your leg up. Okay, drink a little potion. I'm home. Rufus, in the book, Rufus was a rapist. And how Dana, I guess because Dana knew Alice was the one who was going to be the mother of her great grandmother. Her and Rufus had to have a child. And how Rufus was trying to rape Alice. The boyfriend came, beat Rufus up to the point where he was trying to kill him. Dana helped them get a head start to freedom. Of course, they were found, beat up, brought back. And she kind of encouraged Alice to, like, look, make your life easier. Go sleep with Rufus. You sleep with the slave master, have an easier life. And, Alice wasn't really down for it, but she did it for whatever reasons. She did it. And I just kind of felt like, do we really think if somewhere in the past Rufus died, that Alice wasn't going to have another children and Dana was just never going to be born? I feel like what's going to happen is going to happen. And I would have been trying to hurry up and get home. But to answer the questions, there's many power imbalance relationships in this world. Think about at work. Your boss to you, they have more power over you. In this country, we're citizens, but you have senators and presidents, mayors, governors. Everyone has a little bit more power than you. They can be positive relationships as long as you don't abuse your power. Now, one thing Dana did that I understood, she wanted Rufus to be a better man than his father, Tom Whalen. And she would drop little gems to Rufus, but I think Rufus just used the little gems that Dana was dropping as a way to manipulate her, because I felt like it was a relationship where they manipulated each other. And Dana thought she had the upper hand, but she never really did, because you're in slavery. You're in slavery, and no matter how logical of what you're saying is, they only see you as property. So they aren't really respecting what you're saying. But you have to keep telling yourselves it's a book and keep it going. Perhaps it was easy for her to conform because she didn't want to draw attention to herself in order to save the boy and some of the other slaves. I understand why she was conforming. I just was saying, in my mind, I might be a little bit more selfish. Like, I didn't understand, okay, you saved Rufus, but why are we staying here? Like, I didn't understand why she stayed for years at a time. And I just felt it was naive of her to think she was going to change any part of these people's lives during slavery, because she, being from the future, already knew what was going to happen. And I felt like she was messing with their lives by teaching them how to read, helping them escape. Like, you're putting them more at danger if you don't have if you ain't have a surefire path to freedom. I thought she should have left them people alone. But she did try, and I guess you can't blame anyone from trying. Let's go to the next question. Kindred and kinship can be used to denote similarities or a feeling of like call to like. Okay. And what similarities do Dana and Rufus share? And how about Dana and Alice? At the end of the day, all these people were her relatives. Like Rufus and Alice were her many great grandparents. So I feel like Dana and Rufus, they knew how to play that game with each other. Like, in the book, you can tell, even though Rufus didn't necessarily know Dana's full mission of, making sure he stayed alive long enough to have this child, because we know by the end of the book what happened. Like, what was the baby's name? It wasn't Hagatha. Hagar. Once Hagar was born, it was a wrap for Rufus. It was over. But it was clear that they knew they were similar in how they thought they were trying to manipulate each other. Like, Dana thought she was manipulating Rufus, but Rufus was really taking her knowledge and then manipulating her. Like, they both felt like, I need Dana to live. Like, without Dana, I'm going to die. And Dana felt the same way. Like, I need Rufus to live long enough or I'm going to die, because I need my great, great, great grandmother to be born. So in a way, they both knew they needed each other, but I don't think they respected each other. Like, at the end of the day, Rufus viewed Dana as property. And towards the end of the book, I feel like Rufus kind of was in love with Dana and wished he could have some kind of love affair with Dana, but that would have been completely disgusting. But he didn't know that was his great, 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 great grandchild. Dana and Alice. Dana and Alice had a weird relationship. I didn't really see any similarities in them, but I think Alice hated Dana because Dana had a privilege with Rufus without having to use her body. Like, Rufus had a respect and a love and a care for Dana, and she didn't have to have sex with him. And Alice did. For Alice to have that privilege of if there's any kind of easier life during slavery, what some of the slaves perceived as an easier life. Um, Alice had to use her body. Like she first had to be raped, she had to be beat up, she had to be whipped into submission, and then finally when she submitted to him, she had to be his sexual plaything and have all of these children by him. And the one thing I will say Dana was successful in doing is convincing Rufus to free his children, to not make his children slaves. So it was very strange. I think Dana loved Alice because she knew what part Alice played in her future. And it's like she really couldn't tell. And I think Dana felt guilty for pushing Alice onto Rufus, but she knew it had to be done, though. I don't think I would have did it. Now they talk about forgiveness. Dana forgives Rufus and Alice a great deal. Alice was verbally abusive to Dana, but to me it was deserved. Like she was very jealous. She was very jealous. And Rufus was physically abusive towards others. Do you think Dana's forgiveness comes from this familiar bond, familial, like family, and from her feelings of responsibility for the relationship between Rufus and Alice? I just kind of touched on that. Like, yes, Dana forgave Alice because at the end of the day, that was one of her many greats grandparent. That was her great grandmother, or however many greats. And Dana carried a lot of guilt for force. Like, imagine, because I think it took Dana a second to realize it was Alice, because at first she thought it was Carrie, but then she realized, oh no, it's Alice who's going to be my great grandmother. And imagine, like, you pull back from the future, you stop this rape or this beating because he tried to rape Alice, and you help them get to slavery. Then you'd be like, wait, that's my great grandmother. They have to eventually sleep together. And I can't imagine the guilt Dana felt encouraging Alice to get into that situation. Alice should have been resentful of Rufus, not Dana. Yeah, but you have to kind of think of her mindset. Like, she's a slave. She doesn't resent Rufus. Like, she's thinking this is what happens in this time. Like, this is what happens. White men don't, because you have to think Dana is telling everybody Kevin is her husband. Like, in my time, I'm allowed to marry this white man, and he's allowed to love me and treat me in the way any other husband would. Where these people, their mindsets is, we're property, and he doesn't have to love me. He can just snatch me up and do whatever he wants to, and I have to do it. And if I don't, he'll beat me. He could kill me. He could kill my children. You know, her mindset is different, where she hates Rufus. Like, she doesn't have any love for Rufus, but her resentment is towards Dana because she doesn't understand how this woman during slavery is propped up on this pedestal, and she doesn't have to do anything that I have to do. She's just allowed to walk around the grounds, reading, writing, teaching children how to read and write. And, you know, she's very jealous. Very jealous. Compare Tom Whalen to Rufus Whalen. Is Rufus an improvement on his father in any way by the time he takes over the plantation? Is Dana's influence visible in the adult life of Rufus? I think the father and son, very different, two very different people. But I think Dana, the little jewels that she implanted in Rufus's foundation by keep coming around while he was younger. I could see some of that as Rufus grew older, but at the end of the day, Rufus was still a slave master and he still viewed Dana as property, even though he knew what it was. He knew the magical thing of, oh, I see you at home sitting on a bed with the man before you even come to me. Like he understood the weirdness of their dynamic and how they pull between the universes. But at the end of the day, Rufus was still raised by Tom Whalen. He still treated Dana like a slave. He still treated her like property. He still treated all the other slaves badly. The only influence I see that Dana had over Rufus is with his children. By the end of the book, he did free his children. The children were free. He did allow the children to learn how to read and write from Dana. Um, Rufus loved his children by the slaves, where, you know, Tom, he would sell his kids off. He didn't care. Tom Whalen didn't care anything about the children he made with other slaves. He viewed them as, oh, that's just more property, you know, more people to put out there to work. So I think they were different, but the mindset of the times was still the same. Because by the end, Rufus wasn't going to let Dana go. That's why Dana had to kill him. Oh, people in my house is yelling. Dana had to kill him. So I think some of it was visible, but for the most part, because it was another one. Didn't Rufus stab Dana and she ended up back in time with Tom because he was going to kill Tom or something? Not Tom, but Kevin. I forget all the time she went back to the current time because it's so different from the movie. But like Rufus was ready to kill people over Dana to stay a slave and to stay with him. And I think he really loved Dana and really wanted to be with Dana. Oh, they bringing up another book. Okay, let me read this because this looks like an interesting question. Though I haven't read this book, The Life of a Slave Girl, one of the autobiographies of Octavia Butler. The author Harriet Jacobs remarks on her own life as a slave. Oh, I might read that. Still, I'm looking back calmly on the events of my life, and I feel like the slave woman ought not to be judged by the same standards as others. Do you feel like criticizing Dana for her actions during the novel? Now that question doesn't make sense because I feel like we can criticize Dana because Dana wasn't a slave, and I really don't criticize Dana. I just don't understand. Like, I may have more of a non-conforming brain where to me, I would probably be more stressed, depressed, feelings of torture. I don't know if I could conform to the 1815 and I only know this century. Like I don't know if I could even bring my minds around conforming. So I think Dana did in the book, she did a really good job. You know, she did the best that she could. I feel like maybe it was a little bit easier. Dana is from the 70s. The book took place in the 70s, not in 2021, like the series. And they were still dealing, I mean, we're still dealing with racism too, but they were dealing with a different set of racism back in the 70s. So I don't know. I don't know because I feel like Dana still probably felt a lot of racism in the 70s for marrying this white man. It's not like I feel like interracial marriages really didn't become a don't nobody care until like maybe 2010. And then I still see some people who don't like interracial marriages. And I feel like maybe Dana might have put up with a lot more. Um Okay, Kevin. Let's discuss Kevin. I really liked Kevin's role because the main reason I bought the book is I wanted to know what happened to Kevin. Like, Dana went home and left her husband. In the series, it was this man, but left this man in a whole nother time. And you don't really know when you're going to go back because you don't know when Rufus is going to be in a life threatening situation. The main reason why I bought the book, I wanted to know how and if Dana went back and got Kevin. In the book, we learned that Kevin helped many slaves to freedom. And of course, as a white man, that's still frowned upon and a very dangerous job to do. So he had to kind of make his way further north. And it could just be my ignorance, but I believe didn't this book take place in Pennsylvania? And I thought Pennsylvania was north. I didn't know they had slaves that far north because they were were they in Pennsylvania? They were in a state up north where, in my mind, my history, I thought they were already free, but they kept saying we're right here close to Pennsylvania. We want to get up to Maryland and Maine. And I'm like, they had slaves in that part of the country. But anyway, Kevin he went further and further north, and he constantly wrote to Rufus and Tom to see if Dana came back. What was very, very strange to me is, okay, Kevin is up north. Rufus doesn't want Dana and Kevin to link back up. So he's allowing Dana to write all these letters to Kevin, but he never mails them. And Alice is the one, another strange dynamic, because remember, Alice doesn't really too much care for Dana. Alice is the one who risks, a beating to show these letters to Dana. Like, look, he ain't even mailing them. He played you for a fool, girl. So it was the father who was the one who ran Tom away, because I'm sure he knew Tom was helping slaves to freedom. The father is saying it's still the honor system, whatever honor code. You made a promise to this man to write him when his wife came back, so you got to honor that promise. I found it very strange that it was Tom who made sure the letter got to Kevin and not Rufus. I would have thought Tom wouldn't give a damn about Dana. He was already over her mouth. He was already over breaking all of his rules. I would have thought Tom would have been the one, another free 2 pairs of hands, another slave. We didn't even have to pay nothing for it. I thought that was a twist in the story, that it was Tom who made sure. Yeah. I thought it was very strange that it was Tom who made sure Dana got back to Kevin and not the other way around. So I really I wish it was a part 2, but it ain't no part 2 because Rufus is dead. Let's see, what's another question they have for us? At the end of the book, Rufus's body becomes a wall. Oh yes, because by the end of the book, Rufus gets sick. And that was another thing in the book. I'm not really a history person. Like, I usually like more dramatic books, but I really did find this history interesting, that the doctors in that time were like insane, and how they call it bleed you, where they would just cut holes in your body and drain your blood, thinking that was gonna release the infection. Well, really, that's what was opening your body up to more infection, and then now you have less blood, which means you have less energy. And it was very telling how some of the, I forgot what they call healers, who were slaves who used herbs and things of that nature to help heal people, their medicine saved more lives than these doctors who was just cutting on people, experimenting and killing them. Because it was at some point, they was like, don't even call the doctor. The doctor is killing folks. So I thought that was interesting how medicine back then really came from the slaves putting herbs and things together to heal people, and the doctors was just cutting you up because it was that Rufus got really sick. They never really said what it was. Everybody got, I mean, it's not modern medicine, but Rufus blamed Dana for his father's death because he felt like, Dana is coming back and she got bottles of pills and ink pens. I'm like, girl, you about to give them the key to the future. She almost got hurt when she brought back a book that told how slavery ended, and he's like, we gonna kill you for talking about the North getting ready to take over the South. But I done forgot the whole question. I done got on a tangent. But at the end of the book, Rufus's body. That's where I was going. By the end of the book, Rufus was sick, and he was a young man. Like, he was still maybe in his 20s, maybe late 20s, early 30s by the end of the book. But whatever illness he had, he was more like an older man. And then the mama came back, and everybody was messed up. It seemed like the mother was a little touched. Is that politically correct to say? The mother seemed a little bit touched because she hated Dana when Dana first came around. And by the end of the book, she was enjoying conversations with Dana, but I don't think she really knew who Dana or understood who Dana's was. But Dana has to leave part of herself behind permanently. I didn't get the end of the book. Often we see our heroes burst through and break down the walls that surround them rather than painfully pull free and leaving a part of themselves behind. Is one more realistic than the other? Which would you have preferred to read about as a child and as an adult? Look, at the end of the book, I didn't quite understand why Dana had to lose her arm. Like, she killed Rufus. The job was done. You kept him alive long enough for Hagar to be born. Your line of ancestors will still come. You killed him because he was an evil man. He wasn't going to help you. I never understood, like, with Rufus's death, she had to lose her arm. Like, her arm got stuck in the past. I don't know. It's a book, y'all. Definitely get in the comments and let me know what you thought about the end. How did they break it down? In order to save yourself, you have to leave a part of yourself behind. I guess. I mean, I guess so. I don't know. But Kindred, I wish I would have heard of this book long before the series came along. I would have read it. It's probably a book that I won't, because usually once I read a book, I'll donate it, or if I ever have so many books just hanging around, I'll give them away to other people to read. This is one I'm probably going to keep and read again because I really enjoyed it. I could probably watch that series again. I really wish someone could pick the series up, and because was it Hulu? Hulu dropped it. Maybe somebody else can bring it back. I don't know. I really would love to see what a new set of writers who's doing the script, where they would take it, because the series already showed Kevin is still at the Waylands looking at slaves as they're marching up the road. That was another thing they touched on, how cruelly they just sold the slaves like it wasn't nothing. I mean, it was a part of the history, but Dana's main thing is she was trying to help Rufus not sell any slaves, and then Rufus was selling them off too, like they can go. Like, Dana thought she was reaching Rufus, but she really wasn't. The only thing Rufus did in Dana's benefit was his own children. But thank you, KR. Up next, at 5 o'clock, we're going to get into the Davenports. Oh, Lord, I'm about to drop the book. We're going to get into the Davenports at 5 o'clock. I really did enjoy Kindred. I really am enjoying this book club. I love talking about something completely different stories. This was a lot of fun. Maybe next time you all might want to grab the link. The link is in the chat if you want to come up, but you can always get in the chat with your thoughts and comments. And I will be back 20 minutes for the Davenports. But if you're on the rewatch, get in the comments. Let me know what you thought about Kindred. And I'm excited for the virtual book club. I can't wait to get into some more with you all. So I guess I will see you later for, I'm about to say Kindred again, the Davenports, and then at 6 o'clock, Kitchen Table Talk with my best friend, Lamisha. So you all like, comment, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff, and I'll see you later. Bye.